like scary movies?
Uh-huh. I'm getting ready to watch a video.
You making popcorn?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Hi, everybody. I'm George, and this is the Best Little Horror House in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest, at least. And I'm really excited about this episode because, as I mentioned last episode, I really wanted to make sure I was spotlighting some cool Philadelphians on the way out. And his show, Legends of Philadelphia, does that regularly, covering everything from tasty cakes and cryptids to the Eagles and a very fun Nepo Babies of people famous only in this region episode recently. You might have also seen the Philly-themed gear from South Fellini adorning the bods and heads of everyone from Paul F. Tompkins to my damn self. Please welcome Tony Trov.
Thank you, everyone. Mwah. That was a great intro. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely my pleasure. Like I said, I'm a big fan of not just the podcast, but just South Fellini's wares in general. A lot of fun stuff. And between the podcast, the store, and your news-making, museum-worthy collection of Tefani doors,
yes,
it's obvious that holding on to Philadelphia's history is something that you take a lot of joy in. And I'm curious what you think it is about the city that makes you sort of proud to be a part of it and want to document that history.
Well, you know, I'm from South Philly. I'm born and raised, and it's almost like when it's reflected back to me, it's like, wow, you really have a lot of this old South Philly stuff or Philadelphia stuff in general. Mm-hmm. You know, you personally probably understand. You make enough media, and you kind of have a body of work, and you can kind of look at it and observe it and be like, wow, this is definitely you definitely have a style, and you definitely have a certain interest, you know. So that's kind of where I guess I never realized it, and then it's, you know,
suddenly it was there. You just had a body of work enshrining Philadelphia's history. Well, it's certainly wonderful to behold, and as someone who also really appreciates it, you know, I think it's something. It's a body of work to be proud of, no doubt.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with horror? If it's a genre that you explore a lot, or if it's more of a once in a while kind of thing.
Sure. It's funny. I feel like no one even knows this. It's like such an old part of South Fellini lore. We started our company because we were actually writing horror comics for DC Comics.
Oh, wow.
We were, it's a forgotten imprint. It was called Zuda Comics. And it was sort of like the American Idol of comic books at DC. And they were trying to find new talent and things like that. So John and I, we won this competition. It was a zombie comic, and it was all the men in the world turned into zombies. All the women were in girl gangs. And it was like very Tarantino-ish.
Sure. Sounds sick.
You know, kind of thing. And we started our LLC because we had all these artists, an artist, an illustrator, an inker, a colorist, a letterer, and we had all these artists on staff for us, you know. So we were writing all the zombie stuff, and 2008 when zombies were the rage. We did another book about vampires. We did another space horror, and then we made 2 horror movies. We did a sorority slasher, and we did an exorcist movie. This was like years of my life, and this is like something I was passionate about for forever, and just dedicated everything we were doing to this. And we started doing these like t-shirts on the side, and then the side gig turned into the main gig. But campy horror was kind of like my world from 2008 to 2013, 2007, 16, you know, is when the last movie even came out.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my relationship with horror. Camp and genre film, I guess, genre horror. It's what I truly love. But you know, these days it's like, you're from South Philly. Tell us about hoagies. Yeah. All right, here's another hoagie shirt.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. It's, you know, this show is all about breaking out. I love talking to people who don't necessarily get to talk about horror on a daily basis. So
yeah.
You know, when we first started talking, right away you were like, "What's the Ghostbusters situation?" You were ready to talk too if one wasn't available. It's obviously one of the most iconic horror comedies of all time. What is your relationship with Ghostbusters in general, and do you like horror comedies in general, or does this sort of transcend?
It's a property I love. I even had like a bunch of pitches for their old comic book that I just never could get to the right editor. Mm-hmm. I just love Ghostbusters since I was a kid. I feel like a lot of horror movies are funny. You know, of course not every horror movie is funny, but you know, there's like that Ghostbusters is a little bit more funny than horror, but I don't know. At the same time, it could be scary and to kids or whatever. Comedy definitely takes that edge off of a lot of horror, and I think a lot of horror things kind of need that edge taken off. So yeah, as an elder millennial, it's one of my favorite movies. You can see it behind me. I have a proton pack behind me.
Of course, yes.
I have a lot of I've been collecting the HasLab Ghostbuster props. I just think it's cool. I worked in the film industry for a long time, and I always said I really just wish I worked on Ghostbusters. So I'm eager to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is a staple of ghost fans, of comedy fans, of everything in between. And I think it's so fascinating the way that this movie kind of touched the culture in a way that very few movies do, in terms of crossing all kinds of demographic, psychographic, like boundaries. Bustin' made everybody feel good.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons why it worked.
Yeah.
From the song, the comedians in the movie. It's almost kind of funny that it did touch a lot of people to become a hit. It seems kind of like a wacky property now. But I don't know. A lot of things work. Even making a logo that you could just, that's the Ghostbusters, or you can see like the Batman logo. You go, that's Batman. Doesn't say it. A good logo really can mean a lot to people in recognizing words with just an image, which is an icon.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as where the development of the movie begins, it's important to note that Akroyd is not just famously a believer, but his family is like actively involved in the North American spiritualist movement. His great-grandfather had a home seance circle large enough that they had their own on-staff medium.
It's funny because he's like that. He's the true believer in the movie, and he's the true believer in real life.
Exactly. And his grandfather worked at Bell Telephone, wanted to build a high-vibration crystal radio that could contact the spirit world. It's a long lineage. It continues onward. There was a really funny moment in the retrospective where he's talking about scaring the hell out of his own kids by showing them the movie and then telling them, yes, ghosts are real.
Like, this is a documentary, children.
He looked down the barrel of the camera and goes, they will be prepared for some of the revelations of the new millennium. And I just went, oh, okay, Dan.
That is truly funny.
So after reading some of 1981's most up-to-date literature combining physics and spiritualism, Dan Akroyd wrote a 40-page treatment for him and John Belushi before John's untimely passing, and it took place way in the future of 2012, with many groups of Ghostbusters. And one of the important elements of this initial treatment was the inclusion of the lasting, powerful iconography that you talked about. Not just only the no ghost symbol, but the proton pack was included in this initial treatment. Another holdover was the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. However, he came in on like page 20 and was one of like 50 large-scale monsters. Reitman said, frankly, if one was to make that script, it would have cost $300 million in 1984.
That sounds so grand.
Yeah.
I just think that he was there probably just like doing a bunch of coke and just blasting through this. That's a great idea.
Throw that monster in too, and this one,
and this one. But it's cool that it was like a high concept that he was able to turn it into something,
Yeah, they trimmed it down. The core idea of the sort of firefighter-esque guys fighting ghosts was appealing, and he said, you get Ramis involved in the writing and as a buster, and let's bring in Billy at the end. And then they were writing and making it a month later. Billy is, of course, Bill Murray, SNL alum with Akroyd, and frequent collaborator with Reitman and Ramis on hits like Meatballs and Stripes. Harold, in particular, had worked extensively with Bill, not just as a writer, but as an actor before Stripes. They'd been in Chicago with Second City, and then again in New York on the National Lampoon Show off Broadway before SNL. So Bill came on board pretty easily, and this trio of comedians really just do such a great job of feeling like a cohesive unit, but also being distinct enough within there to like latch onto as characters and not just be like, oh, they're a blob of the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, they're each a unique character in the movie. That's an interesting way of putting it.
And also, getting a little ahead of myself here, but because of that history together, Reitman recognized the importance of capturing not just the jokes, but the physicality of the way that these three interact with each other. So at a time when Steadicam was still pretty cutting edge, they were using it to get good master shots and keep them all within frame in a way that I think is really important to the movie, but kind of overlooked a lot of the time.
That's pretty cool, yeah. And, I almost feel like another character in the movie is actually just the city of New York. They shot on look. I mean, look, obviously there's some bunch of sets, but there's some cool locations too, which you really get the feel of the city, definitely from back then. You know.
Oh yeah, you talk about the iconography, and there's very few moments in the movie that stand out to me more than the three of them just running down the streets of New York in full dress.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one of the first things you think of with this movie.
Yeah, and even like, I mean, you think about like this. New York's kind of like a dump back then, but then there's also that high class New York and low class, or just what the city really looked like. You know, they're in that really expensive hotel, and they're dressed like what they're dressed like. And it's funny you're saying like they're like firefighters, but they're really like exterminators, you know. And they're like working class. There's a blue collarness to what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reitman told the head of Columbia about the gist of the story. He threw $30 million off the top of his head because it was 3 times what his last movie had cost. And the head of Columbia said, fine, as long as you have it in theaters by June, which was exactly 12 months from that moment. They had no script, no special effects team, but 3 willing actors. And they said, all right, let's get going.
Incredible it came together like that.
Yeah, seriously.
It's hard to make a movie and to line up all of those things. And especially with special effects back then, you know, it's... You know, they even have like digital effects in the movie, which are, you know, more went into a digital effect back then than it is now. And they have the practical stuff, but the digital effects was a lot more planned out in the 80s, you know.
Absolutely. And it was at the point where they had to basically finance a new studio to get it made because ILM was like the only name in town, basically.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
So Dan had a place in Martha's Vineyard. He rented houses for the other 2, and every morning for 3 weeks, they'd go over to Dan's and write. They spoke really glowingly about how Dan treated people and made them feel when they arrived there was rental cars in the driveway and a fridge full of groceries. They said they made him feel very comfortable, and that those 3 weeks were among the best of their time in the film business, which I thought was a very nice remembrance.
That's sounds like a pretty good gig.
Yeah, right? Nice if you can get it. But how the Ghostbusters become Ghostbusters is basically what they landed on for the story. It's a typical going into business story. It just happens to be an unusual business, they said.
Yeah, I totally, it's an unusual business, but I don't know if you're going to get into this, but I've read an opinion piece a while ago that said how it's like, it's Reagan's America, how it's starting your own business and they're getting out of the university. And they're, you know, they're
the literati contravening environmental laws left and right.
right. Like, who's the real villain? And it's, you know, Walter Peck, and it's the government trying to tell you not to do this. And and they believe in something that no one could believe in. You know, it's you know, something of its time. Exactly.
And I think that even if that wasn't necessarily purposeful, it just like works with the story to make it feel that way, you know? The fact that they're like, all right, we have to go to the bank. We have to get a location for our shop. Like, those are the things that make it feel real.
Yeah.
And also, you know, adds to that feeling of, yes, like it has this focus on economy and getting into business for yourself kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, running your own business, like, there's the things that people see up front, but then there's the things that are going on behind the scenes. I like The Bear, the TV, you know, with the restaurant show, and it's like, yeah, they're making food, but they're dealing with breaking down boxes and fixing the toilet, and it's like, yeah, that's really running a business.
That's right.
Not the show that's up front, you know.
Yeah. I also find it really interesting to see how Dan's spiritualism shaped the movie. It's not just the language like ectoplasm that's taken from spiritualism, but it's pretty easy to read each of the Ghostbusters as sort of an archetype of the adherents. Ray, for whom ghosts are essentially a religion and a way to experience something more. Egon, who views it as something real, but just another scientific query. And then Venkman, the cynical flim-flam man who takes advantage of this spiritualism to get money. And then eventually Winston Zeddemore does join the crew, and he seeks a way for this to coexist with his Christian faith. Another element of spiritualism from the beginning, with Quakers who felt it coincided with their belief in each person having an inner light, and Universalists who rejected the hell doctrine. And then you have Walter Peck representing skeptics at every level. So I'm not necessarily saying that Dan sat down and was like, how can I make this representative of spiritualism? But I'm just saying that, like, his own experience with the reality of spiritualism and sort of his exposure to different types of people within that world helped to shape the movie in a way that I feel like makes it really interesting.
Yeah, like if you're into it like this, well, then you got to deal with people like that. You got to deal with people like that, and it's you got all the religious people show up. Like, yeah, that totally. All these things have to coexist with each other if you're into spiritualism. Yeah,
right. If you're into busting ghosts, this is the way it goes.
This is how it is. You have you have to deal with non-believers, super believers, science people, and people just trying to make a buck. Like it's right. Totally makes sense.
But they got the first draft done. They said, okay, we can at least start casting, even if it's going to evolve from here. They said, we know we need a woman and the neighbor down the hall, roles that would become Dana and Lewis, and went to Sigourney Weaver and Rick Moranis. Amazing, both of them. Sigourney really wanted to do a comedy. She even auditioned for the part, despite being a huge star already. And at one point did get up on the couch pretending to be the terror dog. So they were like, oh yeah, she's got to be in this.
Can you imagine being in that room? Yeah. So wild. And she's like very tall.
Yeah.
So it must have been towering over all the casting directors. Like, all right, she's got this role.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't, if she starts barking at me, I'm saying you get whatever you want, Sigourney.
Whatever you want.
I do think she's great though, because she really is really great at bringing a sense of reality. You know, I think you see it. That's part of why she's so great in Alien as well, is that like she feels invested in the world in a way that you believe that she is seeing ghosts or you believe that she is seeing an alien.
Right.
And I feel like having that to bounce off of her great performance really helps to elevate Bill's acting as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's a great actress, but Bill Murray's a comedian. You believe she's scared and you believe that she's actually dealing with this thing that's out of her control, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of like sort of lighter touch emotions as well. Like when Venkman opens the fridge and sees that it's normal, and she's like almost like embarrassed because she's like, oh, of course it's fucking normal. What was I thinking? Yeah. In a way that if it was a little bit broader of a comedy, which feels insane to be like, oh yeah, this is not the broadest possible comedy, but but it's true that there are moments of subtlety in the performances that I think work really well to help ground it.
Right.
You know, this grounded movie Ghostbusters.
This grounded movie, you know, this documentary Ghostbusters.
Yeah. She also said that despite the famously rascally cast, that they were all there to make something good and that they put their egos aside to play around and make each other laugh for the sake of the movie instead of, you know, when you hear these stories about Bill Murray sometimes and how you're like, well, I'm glad that he was using his power for good.
That's funny. I guess the thing I always remember reading was that they would write, if there's a funny line, I'm going to give it to you. Like, I wrote a funny joke, you say it. And you wrote a funny joke, I'll say it. Like, they were definitely like, giving each other their better lines. And
yeah.
I like that teamwork.
Exactly. That teamwork makes the dream work.
Makes the dream work.
Lewis was actually written for John Candy, but he, quote unquote, didn't get it. They say he was like, maybe if I play it with a German accent and have Rottweilers, but Reitman was like, no, there's too much dog imagery already.
Too much dog.
So Rick was waiting in the wings. He was stoked to step in and help shape a character that is fantastic in this, and in my opinion, is the strongest part of the second one. Yeah,
Rick, he's so funny.
Yeah.
It's also funny that they're both like SCTV Canadians.
Yeah.
And it's like, give me the big one. You won't do it? Give me the tiny one. Like it's like they're like opposite body types and they both work.
That's right. They said, give me the list of Canadians that we can put in this movie. We got Akroyd already.
Give me the tiniest Canadian you got. Rick Moranis.
That's right.
And he's their accountant. Like that's also like such a like talk about like running a business. Like the accountant is one of the main characters.
Yeah. His like small lines about like, oh, I invited all my clients here so that I have like a cheaper party.
It's a write-off. Yeah. It's like
just great stuff. Great stuff. So they shoot in New York. Reitman said they had a shockingly easy time filming there. And what's cool is that shooting actually sort of functioned as pre-publicity too, because people would see them running around in their suits. they'd see, oh, this weird ambulance is driving around. They'd wonder what was going on. So like you said, with the logo, you stick that up, you get people wondering what's going on. The mystique is strong. And then suddenly, boom, Ghostbusters is coming out.
Yeah. I mean, you know those actors, like it's easy sell, I guess, at the time.
Exactly.
They said people were bootlegging the T-shirts as they were shooting the movie. Like,
that's right.
Man, what a you got it. That image is perfect.
Exactly. And when the movie drops, it is an insane smash hit. It's an international box office take of just under $300 million off of that $30 million budget. Not too freaking bad. And the Ray Parker Jr. theme song is the biggest hit of 1984.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a banger.
It certainly is. And while we're talking tunes, I also got to shout out Elmer Bernstein's score. Really, really great. Uses a 19th century keyboard-like instrument called an ondus martineau for the high-pitched spiritual ghost scenes.
Cool.
It's like theremin-esque. But it also, on the other end of things, really uses the brass section in a really great way to add weight to some of the later moments.
Yeah. And I also love all that rhythm and blues music. I guess it's almost like coming off of Blues Brothers. I'm not sure if this came out before Blues Brothers, but it
no, it was after because Belushi had died. So,
but I have like a bunch of those kind of like R&B songs that are kind of they almost don't fit in, but they actually like fit in perfect.
Right. Exactly. And it wasn't just a hit on release. It lingered. It's got merch. It's got animated spin-offs. It's got legacy sequels. It's got re-releases. The damn works. and now, best horror movie ever made, as far as we're concerned.
Name one better. I don't know. Ghostbusters 2. That's about it. I don't know.
So let's get into the actual plot. The music fades in over an exterior shot of the New York Public Library. It lingers on these stone lions, which is a big part of the movie's emphasis on the gargoyles and Gothic statues of the city. You'll see them all over well before the terror dogs that play such an important role. And so begins the opening that's seared into the mind of the American moving-going population, as this little old librarian works her way down to the stacks in a secluded part of the basement, actually in the San Diego Public Library, thanks to the power of editing, where suddenly the haunting manifests. It starts quietly, books floating across from one shelf to another, and then suddenly catalog cards are flying through the air with a fury. There were technicians behind the fake wall just blowing the cards out with copper tubing, although in the commentary I laughed a lot when they just started complaining about how time-consuming picking them all up between takes was. So the librarian flees, only to have her hair blown back by a demonic roar and a white light, which fades to the famous crossed-out ghost logo title card. Amazing opening. It really is. It's so powerful. It really captures exactly the tone of the movie, I think. Just great stuff.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, do we see her, the monster face, or that's what comes...
That comes later. It was just a little tease. You wonder what she saw, yeah.
What did she see, right.
Exactly. And the theme song plays as we head now to Columbia University in the offices of Dr. Peter Venkman, a member of the parapsychology department, along with Drs. Egon Spangler and Ray Stantz. One thing I really liked also in the commentary was that they talked about how starting here with them in academia helps establish a bit of credibility and the domino effect of reality. That as long as you see credible decisions at the beginning, each step as things become less real, the audience will go along with. And I wasn't like picking up on that before he mentioned that, but once you look at it that way of sort of the escalation of these reasonable decisions, it becomes very clear, like those points along the way that people make those choices. And it's just really fascinating. It's really effective writing.
Yeah, that is, you believe that they are the authority.
Yeah, exactly. His name decorates the door as part of a painted message that says Venkman burn in hell, which I think is an interesting opening and funny to paint him so quickly as an asshole, reinforced by his actual actions inside. They described it as a purposeful test to see how far the audience would go along with their quote-unquote hero. I like it that he is just like incorrigible. He's just like... He is like a true-to-life guy with flaws and everything, and not just like the uber Ghostbuster. He's like a dude.
He's a dude. He's an anti-hero.
Yes, exactly. And he's running an experiment to test for latent psychic potential, which involves a male and a female student attempting to glean the shape on the card that he's holding. but he's more interested in flirting with the woman than actually doing science or even science. Fraudulently saying that she's getting the answers correct, 5 for 5, you're not cheating me here, are you? While amusingly and vindictively telling the boy he got it wrong and shocking him to test negative reinforcement on ESP, even when he got the correct shape. You can keep the $5 is perfect outro line.
$5. I know, it's he's sleazy and it's like charming.
Yep, and he's interrupted from closing the deal with the co-ed by Ray Stantz bursting in. 10 people saw the damn ghost at the library. So they meet up with Egon, and I think we get another really interesting moment for Venkman, because he's very explicit with Stantz about not believing in the supernatural in addition to the manipulated results of his experiment implying that same thing. But then he's such a natural flim-flam man, smooth operator, that he leads the conversation about what they might have with the library staff. And, back off, man, I'm a scientist. He's really, in their grill about it.
He is that when he needs to be.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like picking up co-eds or pushing his way through a library.
Right. The trio follows the energy tracker to the basement where they find a ghostly pile of books, just like the Philadelphia mass turbulence of 1947.
That's spooky.
More impressive is the ectoplasm they find all over. Some great physical comedy as Venkman disgustedly wipes his hand on the nearby books after flinging some into his eyes. Just food starch, but very, very funny and effective.
It looks real to me.
Yeah, that's right. And he finally gets a little nervous after a bookshelf falls behind them. The trio stumble across the full torso apparition, which is a librarian that shushes them and then transforms to go boo when he tries to make contact and then Ray tries to tackle her. This moment is great. It terrified test screening audiences and is, again, kind of an indication of the tone that they're going for. Not just scary and funny, but scary and funny in the same exact moment. That you're laughing at this ghost while also laughing at, or rather you're afraid of this ghost leaping out at you at the same time that you're going, oh, it looks a little silly. These comedians are reacting in a over the top fashion. It's all working cohesively.
Yeah, and I think that ghost is pretty scary, especially as a in-camera effect.
Absolutely. So they run out in terror, but they're also stoked at their success. A real paranormal encounter, plus, based on the readings Egon took, if the ionization rate is constant for all ectoplasmic entities, of course, they'll be able to successfully trap ghosts. That's just one of the examples of, they talked about Dan writing a lot of these lines that are just, real lists of things and how he could deliver them perfectly and not understand why other people had trouble delivering some of these insane lists. But they arrive back on campus to find their high spirits dashed by Dean Yeager, the villainous Dean Yeager, who's delighted to inform them that the Board of Regents has revoked their grant and they're to vacate campus immediately because their theories are the worst kind of popular tripe, your methods are sloppy, and your conclusions are highly questionable. You're a poor scientist and you have no place in this department or university.
And we know, as the viewers, we know that because we just watched Peter Venkman fake his results.
Right. And yet, you're still like, geez, man, relax.
Give him a break.
Yeah. It is also really funny when Ray, lamenting their situation, says he's upset because they didn't have to produce anything like they will in the private sector. Maybe that's why you got fired, man. But Venkman isn't down. He's convinced that they're ready to go into business for themselves as the newest indispensable defense science, professional paranormal investigations, and eliminations. All they need is to produce the ghost containment unit, and for that they need a buttload of capital. So what they do is they triple mortgage Ray's childhood home. At 19%, you didn't even bargain with the guy is another classic line.
It's taking out a loan and borrowing money is definitely the way to run a business.
Yeah. What could go wrong?
What could go wrong?
They move into a rundown fire station. I love when Stantz asks, does this pole still work? Because, what does that mean? And also, this was true. It wasn't really just a moment in the movie that as soon as they saw the location, Dan Akroyd was like, oh, we gotta use this, and locked them in on a bad deal. Sometimes you got to go with your heart.
Yeah.
Also, an interesting fact, I thought, both the LA firehouse interior and the New York firehouse exterior were both built in 1912.
Oh, wow. So I guess the architecture aesthetic matches.
Yeah, exactly.
Technically.
Yeah. We go across town where concert musician Dana is returning to her ritzy apartment building, though not before being ambushed by her neighbor Lewis, who warns her that the creep called the manager on her because her TV was left on so loud. She says, I don't remember leaving on the TV, Lewis.
She doesn't strike me as a TV watcher.
She works in the orchestra.
She's in the orchestra.
But it's on now, and we see the Ghostbusters are in business thanks to a timely commercial. Are you troubled by strange noises in the middle of the night? Do you ever experience feelings of dread in your basement or attic? Have you or any of your family ever seen a spook, specter, or ghost? If the answer is yes, don't wait another minute. Pick up your phone and call the professionals. Ghostbusters, we're ready to believe you. And one of my favorite parts in the whole movie is seeing Egon look for his mark as he steps forward.
That's so subtle. You're right. That is so subtle because he's not used to be on camera. Well, he totally is, but he's not used to be on camera.
Exactly. Makes it
That's
so
great.
Believable.
Yeah. I like their ads. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Like they're so shameless with their advertising.
Yeah, the ones in the second one with Janine and Lewis as well are so fucking funny.
Yes. But the idea that they even had to run like a local ad in New York in the 80s is such a funny idea.
So wearily, Dana turns the TV off. She puts away her groceries, but the eggs on the counter start to cook right in their damn shells, popping out and sizzling on the counter, which is also a very cool effect.
Cool effect. Yeah, I have no idea how they did that.
Yeah. And growls emerge from her fridge, and when she checks, it's actually a portal to a Sumerian temple on another plane, where a terror dog on the pedestal roars Zool, who hasn't been there.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah. This does look fucking amazing, though. Like, it really blows my mind watching this again and being like, wow, the billowing clouds, the colors, the flames. It just, like, it is incredible looking.
Such style, yeah.
Yeah. Back at Ghostbusters HQ, Ray drives up in their new car, which is an old sedan-style ambulance that is basically a piece of shit. But Ray is a student of whimsy. He follows his heart, and he's the reason they got the fire station, the Ecto-1, as this car comes to be called, and they need his sense of joy. He's the heart of the Ghostbusters, as they say.
Yeah.
And we see also their newest employee, Janine Melnitz, as delightfully played by Annie Potts, their receptionist. She's unreal. She's so funny. Another one of the most iconic lines of not just the movie, but like Ghostbusters at large is the "We got one" that she screams.
I think you say Ghostbusters. What do you want?
Oh. She's got them all, dropping off or picking up as well. Like, I mean,
dropping off or picking up.
She's got the one-liners. She's amazing. And she tells Venkman that they're still waiting for a customer as he starts to get nervous that this isn't going to work, especially with Ray bleeding money. Type something, will you? We're paying for this stuff. He says. Suddenly, Egon emerges from below her desk, which is a really funny moment because it's completely unforecasted. He just rises up suddenly, and there's quite the spark between these two intellectuals as he reveals his hobby of collecting spores, mold, and fungus.
It's almost like he's oblivious to it, and she's like, I see what's happening right here.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The gang mulls over her story. They decide Ray is going to check out the history of the building, while Egon is going to look into the name Zool. Venkman, on the other hand, is going to take Miss Barrett back to her apartment and check her out, as he says. The problem is that Miss Barrett is a big-time skeptic. So when Venkman is acting up and being a goof as usual, acting like a game show host, as she puts it, she starts to lose patience. And they said that Sigourney did not riff quite as much as the rest of the gang, but that game show host was actually her addition to the script. So
that's funny because she's really just talking about Bill Murray.
Yeah, exactly. I think it was originally used car salesman, they say.
Used cars.
Yeah. Then on top of that, when he finally checks out the fridge, it's back to normal, which now presents a new problem. Either she does have a monster in her kitchen or she's completely crazy. They also pointed out that Columbia was owned by Coke at the time and made them prominently display the Coke can in there.
That's so funny.
It is like so obvious too, because you're like, why is there's just one Coke directly framed between their faces? Okay. But Tired of Venkman's antics, and presumably, like we said, embarrassed by the fact that there is nothing there, she asks him to leave, and he goes for broke, saying he's madly in love with her, so he's going to solve her problem and prove himself. You'll say, Pete Venkman's a guy who can get things done. So now he has incentive to actually solve this problem as well. You know, because he wasn't the true believer, there needed to be something to get him invested in this besides just losing money. And now we have it, this love interest.
Love inspires all.
That's exactly right. It's also a great button as he leaves and Lewis appears thinking it's Dana and trying to catch her, but then locking himself out of the apartment for a second time instead. He thinks it's Venkman walking out. He goes, oh, fuck, I don't care about this guy. And he's locked out.
He's the key master.
That's right. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. That is really just becoming clear to me. But the boys glumly eat a Chinese food dinner that represents the last of the petty cash when finally we got one. The Cedric Hotel, which is actually the Biltmore in LA, is calling with a ghost on the loose. Another really great sort of editing joke, I guess you'd call it, where Janine promises that they'll be very discreet, and then it cuts to them tearing up with the siren blaring from the Ecto-1. Murray kicks in the door. Hey, anybody see a ghost? I also had to laugh a lot when, in the commentary, Ramis starts complaining that in the pan and scan version on the VHS, he's completely cut out from the scene.
Yeah. It's like a perfect lineup, and it's like cut out.
Yep. Poor guy. But there's a recurring disturbance on the 12th floor, which they head up to investigate. Some more great jokes along the way, like the guy saying, must be some cockroach, and moving away from the nuclear accelerators that are strapped to their backs after turning Rays on. But one of my other favorite jokes in this is when they're startled by the housekeeping staff, and they shoot at her. And as they sort of reckon with this, you see her just like spraying the flames with a dinky little like housekeeping bottle. And it's like, that's doing nothing. Oh, it's great.
I like how they're in the hotel, in the elevator, and it says no smoking above them.
Yeah, I mean, look, who knows what might happen if they smoke? They might blow something up, you know? Ray finally stumbles across the ghost. First of all, speaking of smoking, amazing cigarette dangle. It's at like a full...
Oh, yeah.
It must have been like glued to his lip or something because it's fully out.
That is so funny. Yeah.
I love it.
A lot of smoking in the movie. Feels real.
And it's funny, too, because they mentioned that in between Ghostbusters 1 and Ghostbusters 2 was when they banned smoking indoors in New York. And so, like, you just see, like, nobody smokes in the second one, and everybody smokes in the first one.
I know, they're, like, smoking in a hotel. Like, it's funny.
It's truly a time capsule. And this ghost is our boy Slimer, a.k.a. Onionhead, who Akroyd used to affectionately call the ghost of John Belushi. And Venkman gets slimed in the pursuit, which the reaction of, that's great, Ray, save some for me, is just makes me laugh so much. But they chase him down to the ballroom where, amid much destruction, they do manage to capture old Onionhead. This is also where they set up the don't cross the streams that we've heard for decades. All life ceasing instantaneously and every particle in your body exploding at the speed of light is the threat. Total protonic reversal. So, a reasonable warning. Also, another funny warning is don't look directly into the trap, and then Egon immediately says, I looked at the trap. This is just such a fun scene, though. You know, I don't know. I remember watching this as a youth and being like, they're just blowing up so much stuff. It's like such a joyful scene that, like, when you imagine being in the movie business, you're like, this is what I want to do, is like blow up a room and like shoot stuff with my friends. And like, it just seems like such a delightful moment for these guys.
Yeah, it's a ballroom and they're just like pulling the tablecloth on the
dropping chandeliers, all kinds of great stuff. Yeah. They are pleased as punch about their success, though, with 5 big ones in the bank account, and the news of their validity spreading like wildfire across the tri-state area. We get a wonderful montage, Larry King cameos, they run past 30 Rock, they're on the front of papers and magazines and covered on radio and television shows. This is also when Ray infamously dreams of getting a blowjob from a ghost, And
that's right.
Almost as infamous is that this was originally not a dream sequence.
I know, and like the ghost is like colonial.
This is what makes me laugh so much about him like telling his kids, yes, this is real. Being like, yes, daddy got his dick sucked by a ghost one time, Jimmy.
It was the 80s. It was a different time.
That's right. They are exhausted from the increase in work, though, having degenerated into more of ghost janitors, as they said, who are bored of ghosts, which is more of like the tone of the original treatment that Akroyd wrote.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Winston Zeddemore joins the team. He's willing to believe anything for a steady paycheck, he says. He also functions as the audience stand-in who can have things explained to him, like where they're stashing the ghost. And, you know, people might be like, oh, it's on the nose to have someone that they have to just explain that to. But I like it. I like that they're like, oh, here's what we're doing with it, because I wonder about that kind of thing.
Yeah, it definitely uses the character as a tool of exposition.
Yeah. Also, one of the more important characters that's in the first movie and not in the second one is Winston's mustache. Big loss, in my opinion. Big loss.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Venkman checks in with Dana, his irascible charm starting to work on her, as he reports that he has indeed gotten some information. They found Zool. It's a demigod worshipped around 6000 BC by the Hittites, the Mesopotamians, and the Sumerians, was a servant of Gozer, and they set a date for Thursday evening to exchange further information. Another really fun scene. It's kind of one of the more romantic scenes as he approaches her as she's coming out of this concert with the jealous violinist that she works with and everything.
Right.
Bill does a little swirl around as he celebrates at the end. It's nice.
Yeah.
Back at HQ, however, we meet our secondary villain, Walter Peck of the EPA. Really awesome character, performed by Bill Atherton, facilitates a lot of good jokes, and Reitman wisely said that good villains are the cornerstone of a good comedy.
I absolutely agree. A good villain is the, cornerstone to any story.
True.
You know, it's who cares about Batman when you have the Joker.
That's right. The Rogues Gallery.
You need that balance.
And Peck tells Venkman that he's suspicious of their goings-ons, and he wants to investigate any environmental impact from their operation. Too good of a nemesis, almost. This guy said he couldn't walk down the street without getting yelled at, William Atherton.
He's great.
Egon is also getting nervous, with his data showing an outsized buildup of psychokinetic energy. If a Twinkie is the normal amount, the readings this morning show a Twinkie 35 feet long, weighing approximately 600 pounds. That's a big Twinkie.
It's a pretty big Twinkie.
And it's a dark and stormy night as we cut over to Dana's apartment, and up at the tippity is two statues that look awfully familiar, and suddenly they crack and crumble, revealing the living, glowing eye of a terror dog. This set is built on the largest set at Columbia, which was the largest set in Hollywood at the time, by production designer John DeCure, who has won like 7 Academy Awards and had many more nominations beside, famous for Hello, Dolly and Cleopatra. He is like vital to this movie, I think. Having the sets look as good as they do is such a key component of this movie. And for the ending to take place up at the top of this building and feel huge and epic in a way that he does deliver for, things like Alexandria, it's just so important to the movie, I think.
It doesn't feel like a set.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like they're really on top of the roof, and these things are actually, it doesn't look fake and corny. I don't know.
Right. Absolutely. They also blamed him for making them go slightly over budget to $31 million instead of 30. I also really laughed. They said they had no idea how old he was, just rumors from the 70s to late 80s. And I was just like, man, before the internet, you really just had to speculate.
You're not going to, hey, how old are you?
Yeah.
Hey,
it looks like he's 80. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Dana is accosted by Lewis once more. The comic escalation is perfect as she tries to sneak past like a cartoon. He's literally on her in a second. You think like he must have literally been looking out the peephole during his party. and he's devastated that she made a date on this, the night of the party, and that he's locked out again with the people not hearing him because of the loud music. It's just an incredible scene.
It's so funny. And yeah, this is when he invites clients, not friends.
Right, right. Things seem normal in Dana's apartment as she takes a call from her mom, but sitting there in the living room, the camera pans slowly around, really awesome, like huge angle pan around here, revealing a strange eerie light coming from the kitchen. And the door warps like Freddy pushing through the wall, but suddenly monstrous arms erupt from the chair, pinning her down as the chair slides with a mind of its own towards the now open door and the terror dog behind it. And we talked about the librarian being a pretty effective scare moment at the beginning. This is really on another level. When you're like totally distracted thinking it's going to be the door and like suddenly these arms rip out and are like grabbing at Sigourney Weaver, it's like a real effective jump.
Yeah, it's a good scare and good effects. I just even saying, like, another reason why I like this movie, it looks like fun filmmaking.
Yeah.
You can kind of get how they make all this stuff, or how they did this effect. And, even they're like blasting light behind that door and it's like so spooky.
Yeah.
But it's like, that looks so fun,
Yeah. You don't expect the chair to be just like sliding across the floor. A lot of fun misdirects. It's great stuff. Meanwhile, Lewis is being chased by another terror dog right out of his apartment and into the park. And I find this scene kind of fascinating because when we get a POV shot from the wealthy diners in the glass-walled Tavern on the Green, they like can't even see the terror dog and they don't like care to. They return back to their meals as soon as the disruptive screams cease. And you wonder, like, is that just a comment on like being uninterested in the issues of the world around them, or like, can we just not see it because of the angle? And I'm now ascribing that to it.
I guess I always took that as like, just another crazy thing going on in New York.
Hey,
like,
that's New York, baby.
They're just like used to it. Yeah, that's New York, baby. They're just used to it.
Now, Venkman arrives at Dana's, only there is no Dana, only Zool.
Only Zool.
One of the most impactful lines as well. Really great stuff. She's the gatekeeper. She's waiting for the keymaster to prepare for the coming of Gozer the Destructor. There's a lot of goo around. His demands to speak with Dana exacerbate Zool's possession of her. Her voice distorts. Her eyes roll back. She starts to float. Again, as this movie picks up, the scares start to become a little more realized in a way that is really, really effective.
Yeah, it's all ramping up.
Mm-hmm. We do get to see the Keymaster. Vince Clortho, Keymaster of Gozer, was the terror dog that possessed Lewis. So he's running around the park, introducing himself and looking for Zool. He talks to the horse, which is a very funny scene.
Right.
But he gets picked up and brought by the police to Ghostbusters HQ, which is when Janine's line of picking up or dropping off is in reference to him. I also love that you can see the terror dog on the screen mirroring Lewis's movements.
Yes.
It's like a little detail that just really is awesome.
Yeah, they knew that art department was tight. They knew what they were coming into.
Yeah, and it's cool because earlier in the movie you see it happening with Dana where it's like it just shows her image on the screen. And so like we've seen that thing before. We know what it does even though we don't realize it's setting up.
We know what it's supposed to look like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I also really like this moment where Zeddemore takes a minute as they drive around to question Ray about if this is the end of the world. It does sort of play into that question of spiritualism where Ray's character says, I never met God, in the same way that he is having tangible experiences with spirits. So Winston asks, what if this is you experiencing God because it's the predicted end of the world from Revelation? And Ray is just like, let's put on some music. I'm not trying to get into that right now. Sorry, Winston. So Walter Peck comes back with a court order and the police telling Egon to shut everything off, which is, of course, a terrible idea. And many people in the room warn him about this, but he insists thanks to his wounded ego. And there's this huge explosion of psychokinetic energy. All the ghosts erupt in a giant pink mushroom cloud. Awesome aerial shot of New York as it lingers on the spirits, like peeling off and landing all over the city. Just spectacular, especially as it leads into another awesome montage of the havoc on the ground from these ghosts. Ghoul taxi driver, Slimer is back and eating hot dogs. It's a great time.
I always freaked out with the ghost taxi driver.
Yeah, he's good.
That is a scary effect. Oh, what's the woman's mink coat comes back to life? Oh, the mink.
That's so good when it runs away. It like leaps out at the people or like around them too.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
Man. Great stuff. It's also funny because the zombie or like the ghoul ghost taxi driver, or whatever you want to call him, is like the most tangible one. He doesn't have like the same glow that a lot of the other ghosts have.
He's kind of like a zombie, right?
It's freaky. It like comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. It's actually like it feels like it's more like on par with like just old horror movies where they just like it's a guy in some makeup on.
Yeah.
The other stuff kind of like glows. Like you're right. Like there's a spiritualness to them, but that one's just like this is just a monster.
He was there already. He's not related to this outpost.
He's not a ghost. He's just a guy. No tip.
But Vince follows his instincts to Zool. Our gang of heroes have been arrested for their role in the explosion. Amazing shot in the jail where everybody in the holding cell is watching and listening intently to the scientists explain how Dana and Lewis's building is built like a telemetry tracker to receive and transmit turbulent psychic signals, constructed with cold riveted girders and cores of pure selenium. And Bill like looks at the guy. He's like, "Are you getting all that?" In layman's terms, though, Dana lives on the corner penthouse of Spook Central, and something is going to come through it as a door. I love that they were like, "Oh, we got to justify this now." So Egon just randomly tells a story to the whole cell. He says, all right, the architect was Ivo Shandor. He was a doctor who performed a lot of unnecessary surgery, then started a secret society of Gozer worshippers. After World War I, he decided society was too sick to survive, and with close to 1,000 followers, they performed rituals up there to bring about the end of the world, and now it looks like it might happen. And this is just like truly like a 30-second speech from Egon that is like the entire exposition of just get it. Just you're on board with this at this point. We also get a little shot of Reginald Vell Johnson in his very first movie here, first cop performance of many. And they're brought before the mayor, with Peck desperately trying to get ahead of them. They're consummate snowball artists who use sense and nerve gases to induce hallucinations. They caused an explosion. I also saw like a think piece kind of thing that was like, what if they are using like a nerve gases?
What if they are?
Like, it did get out of hand. He was right all along. I said, wow.
They were just doing this lawless experiments.
Ray retorts that everything was fine until Dickless here turned off the protection grid. And when the mayor asks if it's true, we get the immortal line, yes, it's true. This man has no dick.
It has no dick.
Well, that's what I heard.
It's true. That's so stupid.
And you know, and about that line, it's funny because everyone's like, oh, there's so much improv in the movie and stuff. And yes, there's a lot of improv in terms of like working off of the script and then doing like riffs and stuff. But like, that's the kind of joke that doesn't happen by accident. Like, you don't stumble across this. That has to be written. And I think that it is kind of what distinguishes it from some of the later ones in terms of like having a fully fleshed out, well-written comedy script going into it that they can then elevate with improv.
Yeah, there are written jokes and there's improv jokes, but they definitely go hand in hand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
After warning the mayor of the type of chaos he can expect if this isn't stopped, he agrees to support them. Peck is livid and tossed from the room. The Ghostbusters are escorted to the building where the crowd goes nuts for them. To Venkman's great delight, Ray gets a little thrilled too. Although it gets serious when the dark energy gathering above casts a shadow over the whole area and the ground starts to tear up under their feet. Another incredible effect as they start to just crumble around them.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, how do you pull off an effect like that, you know? You got like a high up stage to
You have to literally build the whole street.
Right.
Big difference between the raucous applause and the indignity of climbing 22 flights of stairs with this nuclear accelerator on their back, though. Really funny. Also, just a great matte painting above them to indicate the rest of the stairs.
Yeah.
Zool and Vince Clortho perform the ritual to summon Gozer the Destructor, with the gate opening quite dramatically. There's thunder and fog, all kinds of stuff. And they turn back into terror dogs after the ritual and run through the gate with the Ghostbusters hot on their heels, where Gozer appears in the form of a woman And Ray approaches at Venkman's encouragement. He says, I'm a duly designated representative of the city, county, and state of New York, and I order you to cease all supernatural activity and return forthwith to your place of origin or nearest convenient parallel dimension. And again, it's like just the ability to key into delivering these stodgy lines in a way that is hilarious, that acknowledges how insane it is for him to be saying this in this delivery. It's such a fine line. It's such a tightrope for him to have to walk on that performance. And I think that Dan Akroyd is one of the greats of comedy, no doubt. And he does it with aplomb in this. It's really awesome stuff. Are you a god? Asks Gozer. And when Ray hesitantly says no, she says, then die, and shocks them. Ray, when someone asks if you're a god, you say yes.
You say yes.
You say yes. He should have known that. He shouldn't need to be told that.
He's supposed to be a pro. He's by the book.
I guess so. He's too honest for his own good.
Yeah. He's lawful good.
Yeah. But they're pissed now. This chick is toast. Sticks are smoking and ready, and they throw it, but she dodges their plasma blast easily.
You know, just real quick, I can't confirm this, but I read that this chick is toast. Like, people didn't, that line was improv, and people didn't say that before. Like, you're toast, meaning really? you're like cooked, where you're done. I can't confirm that, but if that is true, I think it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Like a phrase started just kind of became part of culture, Yeah,
that's really cool.
You can do a errors and omissions of this and edit that out or whatever, but I can't confirm it, but I've read that is true.
I choose to believe it.
I believe.
But when she vanishes, they think they did it for a second until the building starts to quake. Stones fall on the crowd below, and the voice of Gozer rings out from above, choose the form of the Destructor. They try to clear their minds, but Ray can't help it. He thought of something, and that something is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, now enormous and stomping through the city. This guy...
Such a cute monster.
It is so great. I, literally, while I was watching this earlier, took a screenshot of just, his angry face and just, put it in the document of notes so that I could just, look at him while we're having this. I was like, he's just so damn cute.
It's a great destructor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he could have done a lot worse. Chaos ensues as cars crash and people flee in terror, his jaunty cap and sailor's kerchief a taunt with every step. They fire their proton packs at him. It lights him on fire, and he's not happy about that. Now a roasted marshmallow, and they realize they need to try something radical. Reversing the flow from the gate, which involves crossing the proton pack streams, which you may recall they were not supposed to do.
Don't do that.
But, as Egon says, there's definitely a very slim chance they'll survive. I love this plan. I'm glad to be a part of this plan. They all charge up, joining into one thick beam that causes a huge explosion, melts the face of the Marshmallow Man, drops goo all over the city. Apparently it was actually just shaving cream, and double apparently they used menthol, which I bet felt awesome.
I like that he actually is supposed to be he's supposed to be marshmallow.
Yeah.
So if he explodes, everyone's covered in marshmallow.
Again, they could do a lot worse.
Could have been worse. The shaving cream thing is really funny because, shaving cream reads as marshmallow guts.
Yeah, good enough. Camera. Good enough, for sure. The portal is gone. It's once again just a roof. The Ghostbusters did survive. I love that Venkman just has a tiny little bit while everyone else is covered in the cream.
Yeah, of course. Of course he made out the best.
Yep. Dana and Lewis emerge from the dog statues, needing to be broken out like an egg. Apparently, they really trapped her in there, and so they actually had to be all right, get her out of there before she suffocates in this dog statue.
Before SAG gets involved.
She is fine, though. Lewis is also fine, but dazed, and agreeable enough to consent to a brain tissue sample. Delighted to be alive, Zeddemore just pumps his fists and shouts, "I love this town!"
Yep.
The crowd goes nuts as they all arrive at the bottom. Credits roll. Venkman and Dana smooch. Janine and Spangler go off together. Lewis shows up and gets hustled away with no acclaim, which is hilarious as well. They drive off to the theme song. Bustin' makes me feel good. Slimer flies at the screen and we cut to black. Such a great ending because you don't just get a sense of triumph, but also of what's next for these characters. It like does the tease of what's coming for them without even having to say that that's what's happening.
Yeah, maybe even what you imagine might actually be even better than Ghostbusters 2 even was, although I am a fan.
Yeah. And now, Tony, we've reached the part of the episode where we sum up why this wasn't just a good horror movie, but is in fact the best horror movie ever made.
Best horror movie
and I'm going to let you start.
Why is it the best horror movie ever made? It's scary. It's funny. It has iconic lines. I feel like you quoted so many lines that they're just so memorable. They invented the word toast.
Hell yeah.
I mean, come on. It's beat that.
That's right. What more can you ask for? To me, this is the best horror movie ever made because I do think that it is an incredible conglomeration of humor and scares. I think that the effects are really incredible, but I think that it's also really summed up by a cute moment in the commentary where Ramis talks about how he got a lot of letters from teachers saying that they saw kids playing Ghostbusters at recess and before and after school. But what was nice was that it wasn't competitive, that they were getting together and fighting ghosts. And I just think that that's so sweet and really indicative of sort of what the movie at its core is about, which is that these guys have each other's back through thick and thin. They get fired together. They go into business together. They're the best of friends, even though they are very different guys. And for them to have each other's back in that way saves the whole damn city and possibly even the world. So
teamwork.
That's right. Like we said, teamwork makes the dream work. That was actually a tease for my reasoning at the end here. I also just think that one of the effects guys said they were totally serious about making it stupid. Every matte line, every piece of animation, done with the detail as if it was 2001: A Space Odyssey, but we never let go of the fact that the initial drive was that it was supposed to be funny. And I think that really just nails it. It is funny. It has these great effects. It touched culture in a way that cannot be overstated. And that's what makes it the best horror movie ever made.
That's well put. I personally too, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. It's kind of movie that made me want to make movies.
Hell yeah.
It's definitely the kind of thing that makes you want to get involved and make props, do special effects. Maybe not make regular movies, but make like prop heavy, funny movies.
Absolutely. Couldn't say it better myself. Tony, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This was an absolute blast. Please tell the people where they can find you, where they can shop South Fellini. I know you have a show coming up yourself, right?
That's right. Well, you can shop at South Fellini at our brick and mortar on East Passyunk Avenue, 1507 East Passyunk Avenue, or you can shop online at southfellini.com, SOUTHFELLINI. We're South Fellini everywhere, Instagram, Facebook. I guess that's just really it. And you can find me at Tony.Trov on Instagram. And you can come to our live event coming up. It's an evening with South Fellini. We're going to be putting out a new concept album. We're doing a liquid light show. We're showing our Philadelphia Lost Media project, which is a lot of old commercials and things like that and set to music. And we're actually also showing some of our cartoon. We produce a bunch of cartoons and we'll be showing that as well. So it's a fun night. It's going to be at Philamoka September 6th. All ages.
Hell yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I encourage people to go out. People know how much I like Philamoka as a venue. That's where I host the live shows for Best Little Horror House in Philly as well. So definitely encourage people to get out there for that. As far as my plugs, this is, pretty much, there are 3 episodes left of the podcast. So check out the back catalog if you can. Follow me on Letterboxd at Little Horror PHL, on Instagram at Little Horror PHL as well. And there is going to be a quote unquote secret live finale for the show also at Philamoka on October 20th, where we will be talking about the movies that I am shocked didn't get picked for the show And then the movies that I would have liked to have been picked for the show, with a lot of really cool guests coming up and sitting and talking with me about these movies for some basically like mini episodes. It's going to be a really good time. It's going to be just kind of like suggested donation to help cover the cost of renting the venue, because truly I want this to be just like a fun celebration of the show at the end of it. As many people as possible coming out to check it out. So if you're in the area, definitely come through October 20th. Philomoka, finale of Best Little Horror House in Philly.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. That's it. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.